Hey everybody, we're back. That's right. Welcome back to Powers and Panels, the show where we take the comics that shaped us and refuse to let them go quietly. I am Blaze, part of the dynamic duo of Blaze and Zoey, and we've got a big one today. We're leaving the Marvel Universe for 2 weeks as we started off episode 1, which was World War Hulk, episode 2, the death of Superman, and today, episode 3, another DC classic, and heading straight to Gotham City. And we're not visiting on a good night. But before we get into tonight's story, we did have some incredible listener responses that came in through email to last week's Death of Superman episode, and we cannot let them sit. As we put the question to you, knowing everything, knowing the cost, knowing what it means, would Superman have done anything differently? Would he have found another way when he fought Doomsday? And Joy G from Atlanta, Joy G, I want to send a shout out to you wherever you are, my friend. Thank you for your email. Joy sent in what might be the perfect answer. Joy said there is no way, even knowing the consequences, even knowing he might not walk away, that Superman would not have stopped, would not have done anything different, because that's who he is. And honestly, Joy G is right. That's the whole point of Superman. The willingness is superpower. Now, me personally, I might have done something. I think me and Zoey both have our own theories of what we would have done differently. Me personally, I would have tried maybe flying him into the sun or something like that. Because as you know, the sun, gives Superman its powers. So maybe I would have tried flying him into the sun. I don't know. I'm going to see if that might have worked. Who knows? And then my co-host Zoey had her own theory about how that fight could have gone differently. And it does involve a certain pocket dimension from the Silver Age. So I'm going to bring her in and make her case before we get into tonight's story. But first, I am vengeance. I am the Knight. I am about to have a very bad few weeks. And actually, Gotham in 1993. Tonight we're talking about the story where someone finally figured out exactly how to destroy the man behind the cowl, the Batman. So, hey, I can't talk like that for too long because it really works the throat. But Zoey does have her take on last week's Death of Superman episode first. And I'll bring Zoey on. Zoey, how you doing? Glad to see you. I know it's been 2 weeks. That time has flown by.
I am doing good, thanks, and it's been a couple of weeks. It's great to be back on another episode. And Blaze, did you just do a Batman impression to introduce our Batman episode? I wasn't expecting that, but pretty good job on the voice, Blaze. Okay, so yes, going back to what I would have done as far as dealing with Doomsday from last week's Death of Superman episode, I would have tried to send Doomsday to the Phantom Zone. I know, logistically complicated, probably not practical in the middle of a fight where you're getting your bones rearranged, but at least I'm trying something other than let's keep hitting until one of us stops. The Phantom Zone exists. It's right there. Use your resources, Superman. But yes, Joey G is correct, and I respect it. Superman didn't hesitate, and he never would have. That's the tragedy and the beauty of it. Okay, so for today's show, what would it take to break Batman? Not beat him, not outsmart him, not lock him up for a night. I mean, actually, fundamentally, completely break him. The guy who has trained his entire body and mind to the absolute limit of human capability. The guy who has contingency plans for his contingency plans. The guy who willed himself out of a coma through sheer stubbornness. What would it take to break that guy? Because in 1993, a writer named Chuck Dixon and an artist named Graham Nolan sat down and said, okay, what if we figured that out? And they came up with was a villain named Bane and a story called Knightfall. And it is one of the most brutal, psychologically devastating things that has ever happened in a Batman comic. And I say as someone who just read a synopsis of it late last night and then could not sleep because I kept thinking about it. So, buckle up. I am Zoey. Welcome to Powers and Panels. Our resident comic book guy, Blaze, is going to walk you through the whole thing now, and then I will be back with my hot take and listener question for the week. Blaze, the floor is yours. Give me Knightfall, and maybe not so much with Batman voice, as it's kinda creepy. I really hope not to come back in here and find you in a mask with a cape on. Ow! Take it away, Blaze.
And yes, Knightfall is exactly as intense as Zoe's making it sound. But here's the thing that makes it more than just an intense story. It is a story about strategy, about patience, and what happens when someone looks at a legend and says, I'm not going to attack the symbol, I'm going to destroy the man underneath, and then they're able to actually do that. I am Blaze. Welcome to Powers and Panels, Episode 3, Batman Knightfall. And Zoey just gave me back the reins, and let us talk about how Gotham's greatest hero literally got broken. So, to understand Knightfall, you have to understand the character Bane. And Bane is very unique as you get to know him. And he's very, we've seen him in the Batman movie that Christopher Nolan did. But you have to set some of that aside, because the comics version of Bane is something genuinely special. He is not just a big guy who hits hard. He is one of the most terrifying antagonists in Batman's history. And the reason is simple. He is actually as smart as Bruce Wayne. Okay, so here's a little backstory on the character Bane. He grew up in a prison called Pena Dura on a fictional Caribbean island called Santa Prisca. He was born there, sentenced to serve his dead father's prison term from the moment he was born. Think about that for a moment. He did not commit a crime. He was born guilty because of what his father did. And he grew up in one of the most brutal prison environments imaginable, surrounded by violence, with nothing but time and books and his own relentless will. So he educated himself, he trained his body to its absolute limit, he survived things that would have destroyed anyone else, and eventually he was selected as a test subject for an experimental drug called Venom, a chemical compound that enhances strength and physical capability to superhuman levels. It nearly killed him. He survived that too. And when he came out the other side, he was something new. He was Bane. And the first thing Bane did with this freedom was to study Batman. So he had heard about the Dark Knight of Gotham while he was still in prison, the legendary figure who ruled the city through fear and willpower. And Bane recognized something that none of Batman's enemies ever had. He recognized that Batman's greatest strength was also his greatest vulnerability. Batman is a human being, a brilliantly trained, magnificently prepared, deeply committed, well-studied human being, but nonetheless still human. And humans get tired. Humans make mistakes. Humans break down. So Bane actually had a masterful plan, not to fight Batman, but to exhaust him first. So Knightfall actually opens with one of the most audacious acts of villainy in Batman's history. Bane breaks into Arkham Asylum, the institution housing virtually every major criminal Batman has ever put away. I mean, all the crazies are there. And he blows it open. I mean, he frees everyone. The Joker, the Scarecrow, Mr. Freeze, the Riddler, Poison Ivy, Mad Hatter, Killer Croc, all of them loose in Gotham simultaneously. And this is not by accident. This is the plan. Bane does not participate in the chaos himself. Not yet. He watches from a distance and he waits because he understands something about Batman that Batman may not fully understand about himself. Batman will not let Gotham burn. He will not retreat. He will not triage and let some villains destroy his city. He will run himself into the ground, catching every single one of them before he rests, because that is who he is. And so Batman runs the gauntlet night after night, fight after fight, with almost no sleep, no recovery time, no reprieve. Writers Chuck Dixon and Doug Mock depicts this with real craft. You see Batman getting slower, getting sloppy, making choices that arrested Bruce Wayne would never make. Robin is there. This is Tim Drake's Robin, by the way, and he's watching his mentor deteriorate in real time right in front of his eyes. He's trying to help him, trying to cover the gaps, increasingly frightened about where his mentor is heading. He catches his ass. He fights the Scarecrow. He battles Killer Croc in the sewers. This is Batman we're speaking of. He battles Killer Croc in the sewers, who is essentially a monster, in a fight that leaves Batman injured and exhausted and still not done. He goes after the Joker and the Scarecrow together, which is his own kind of nightmare. I mean, you got two crazies you got to handle at once. Each victory costs him something. Each night without sleep narrows him. The cape and cowl become less a symbol of strength and more of a question: how much does Batman have left in the tank? And Bane watches all of this as he's been studying the Wayne Manor grounds. He also was smart enough to figure out that Bruce Wayne is actually Batman, a deduction that no other villain had managed to actually figure out themselves. And he knows the man behind the mask, and he waits until the moment he calculates Batman is at his absolute lowest point. Then he goes to Wayne Manor. He breaks in. He finds Bruce Wayne, not Batman, not the symbol, but the exhausted, injured, almost defeated man underneath the cowl. And he beats him. Not a quick fight, not a lucky shot, a sustained, methodical beating from someone who is trained for nothing else and is operating at full strength against a man running on empty. And then Bane does the thing, the unthinkable thing. He picks Bruce Wayne up over his head and breaks his back over his knee. Okay, now let that sink in for a moment. Did anyone ever think that they would see Batman get his back broken by a villain? Bruce Wayne, Batman, is now then thrown into the streets of Gotham, paralyzed. His back is broken. And Bane walks away as the new king of Gotham, having done what decades of supervillains could not do. He did not just beat Batman, he ended him. So this is now where Knightfall becomes something more than an incredible action story, because Bruce Wayne is paralyzed and Gotham still needs Batman. And Bruce, from a hospital bed, barely able to move, makes a decision that will haunt this story and haunt him for several years afterwards. He chooses successor, and he chooses the wrong person. So he actually picked Jean Paul Valley, a character who has been introduced in the Batman storyline previously called Sword of Azrael. Jean Paul is the inheritor of a centuries-old religious assassin order called the Order of St. Dumas. He is brilliantly capable, intensely trained, and deeply, dangerously unstable. He has been psychologically conditioned from birth by what the comics call the system, a kind of mental programming designed to make him a perfect weapon. He is not a whole person. He is a weapon that learned to walk around pretending to be one. So Bruce chooses him anyway, knowing all this. Not Dick Grayson, not Nightwing, not the original Robin, the person most qualified to carry the mantle. He is actually passed over for John Paul. Now, it is a choice that says a lot about Bruce Wayne's blind spots. He sees John Paul as more than capable. He does not fully account for what John Paul is underneath that capability. So John Paul becomes the fill-in Batman, and he is immediately uncomfortably different. He builds a new suit, an armored, mechanized thing that is less Batman and more weapon. He fights with a brutality that the real Batman would never allow, and he starts letting criminals get hurt in ways that crosses lines that Bruce Wayne would never cross, as he spent his entire life getting these criminals caught but not brutally hurting them. And when the John Paul, as the role of the new Batman, finally faces Bane, who is still operating as Gotham's self-appointed king, he defeats him decisively. And the way he does it, the methods he uses, would have made the real Bruce Wayne deeply uncomfortable. So the arc that follows, sometimes called Night Quest and then Night's End, follows Bruce Wayne's physical recovery, which is his own extraordinary story involving a healer in South America and a journey of genuine rehabilitation. And then his return, and then the confrontation with Jean Paul, who has, by at this point, gone deep enough into his own instability that he is barely recognizable as a hero at all. So Bruce has to take the cowl back from someone he actually chose to succeed him. And this is someone he trusted with his secret identity and his city. And the story asks, what does that cost? What does it mean when the story of the world's greatest detective, the man who plans everything, is simply wrong about choosing his successor? So Knightfall asks a question I think is generally underexplored in superhero stories. What is Batman without Bruce Wayne? And more specifically, can the idea of Batman exist independently of the specific moral code that Bruce Wayne was built on? Jean-Paul Valley, in my opinion, proves that answer is no. You can put on the costume, you can fight crime, you can even beat the villains, but if you do not have that ethical architecture that Bruce Wayne built, that absolute commitment to not killing, the discipline over anger, the prioritization of justice over punishment, then you're not Batman. You're something wearing Batman's face, and that is something very dangerous. And this is not a small idea. I mean, it is a very profound one because it means Batman is not a technique. Batman is a philosophy, and philosophies cannot be passed down the way a cape can be passed down. So the other thing that Knightfall does, and this is the part I find very interesting, is make Bane genuinely tragic, not sympathetic in a sense of excusing what he does, but tragic in a sense that you understand him. He was born in a prison for someone else's crimes. He fought and suffered and studied his entire life and emerged as something extraordinary. And his great achievement, the thing he worked his entire life toward, is breaking a man who was already stretched past his limit. That is the mountain he climbed. And when you see what it cost both of them, it is hard not to feel something complicated about it. So when Chuck Dixon has been asked, and he's actually talked about the intentionality behind Bane's intelligence, the whole point was that Batman has never faced a villain who attacks him the way a chess player does. Not piece by piece, but strategically thinking 10 moves ahead. Bane did not come to fight Batman. He came to win. And the distinction matters enormously. The legacy of Knightfall is massive. It remains one of the definitive Batman stories, regularly appearing on any list of essential Batman reading. It introduced Bane as a genius A-list villain, not the caricature he sometimes becomes in other media, but a legitimately fearsome, intelligent, fully realized antagonist. It directly inspired significant elements of The Dark Knight Rises, the Christopher Nolan's last Batman film. It explored the question of legacy and succession in ways that the Batman comics are still working through today. And it gave us something rare in comic books, a story where the hero genuinely loses. Not a fake out, not a temporary setback. Batman loses. Batman is broken, literally. And the rebuilding of him as much of a part of the city is another arc that is definitely, a great investment to read. And if you want to read it, DC has collected Knightfall across 3 volumes: Knightfall, Night Quest, and Night's End. I would strongly recommend all 3. The first is the most famous, but the full arc is where the real payoff lives. Do not stop at the broken back. See it all the way through to Bruce reclaiming the cowl, because that moment earns everything that came before it. So I have not forgot my co-host Zoey. I'm going to give the reins back to her to get her reaction and to also get this week's question. So I'm looking for my co-host Zoey. Yay, Zoey! What's your take on this story?
Okay, I have so many thoughts. Starting with the fact that Bane is actually a genius, and I feel weird about it. Like, I'm not supposed to be impressed by the villain, but the man did his homework. He studied. He had a whole strategy. He Batman, and that is somehow deeply upsetting to me personally also, and I feel very strongly about this, where Bruce Wayne picking Jean-Paul Valley over Dick Grayson is one of the worst decisions in DC Comics history, and I will die on that hill. Dick was right there, proven, trusted, practically family. And Bruce looked at him and said, "No, I am going with the unstable sleeper agent from the secret assassin cult, world's greatest detective, everyone." On that note, so here is this week's question for our fans, and I cannot wait to see what you all think. Bruce had two options: Dick Grayson, proven and trusted, or Jean-Paul Valley, capable but deeply unstable. He chose Jean-Paul. Why? Bad judgment, ego, something else going on in his head? Drop your theory in the YouTube comments and we will read our favorites next episode. Back to you, Blaze, to wrap everything up.
Okay, great. Okay. That is the question that has been debated for 30 years, and I love that we are throwing it to the audience. Ego, grief, guilt, denial. I generally think there are multiple valid readings, and I cannot wait to see what people come up with. Great answers get read on the show, so make them count. Thank you for listening to Powers and Panels and for keeping track with us. Actually, we're going back to the House of Ideas. We're going back to the Marvel Universe in 2 weeks. As we've spent some time the last couple weeks in the DC Universe, we're going to give Marvel some love. And in 2 weeks, we're going to a great story, a great X-Men story called Days of Future Past. It's a story about time, sacrifice, and what you're willing to do to save a future that has not happened yet. It is a great story to read. We can't wait to unpack that one. So we'll be here. I am Blaze. She is Zoey. Until next time, keep reading, keep thinking, and remember, the cow does not make the Batman. The man underneath does. Give us some love, subscribe, and we'll see you guys soon.